In tonight's Tax Insider, funding the NIH. The National Institutes of Health funds 50,000 projects a year, totaling $24 billion. But are they putting that money to good use? For one perspective, we're joined by David Williams, president of Taxpayers Protection Alliance. David, thanks for being here.
Thank you.
So NIH has a $30 billion budget, but recently the head of the agency said researchers probably would have had an Ebola vaccine by now if it weren't for spending cuts. That comment drew a lot of criticism, especially on Capitol Hill. But Ebola research had been cut in half over the past few years. So, Dave, does the head of the NIH have a point?
Here's the problem, is in 2000, their budget was $17 billion. It is $30 billion today. Now, granted, it's been kind of flat over the last 6 or 7 years, but $30 billion is a lot of money. And even if Ebola funding has been cut, there are 50,000 research grants. There are a lot of places that they can cut and shift money over to Ebola. I mean, we're talking about studying the sex habits of Japanese quails in Japan, $200,000, and the list goes on and on. So it makes some sense, but it really doesn't, because they still have a lot of money at their disposal.
In early September, the agency fell under fire for spending nearly $70,000 on a project at the University of Missouri, studying whether or not sending a text message to college students would encourage them to drink less at sporting events. When asked about that research, the agency said the money wasn't only spent to study collegiate drinking, but also to, quote, empower promising predoctoral students to obtain individualized, mentored research training from outstanding faculty sponsors, end quote. Is that what the money's supposed to be used for, Dave?
I gotta tell you, I think this was what encapsulates what's wrong with NIH and their spending. Is, first of all, $70,000 for a research grant to text message college students before going to a tailgate. Is that a national priority right now, or was it ever a national priority? Plus, they don't care about the outcome of the research. This is more just giving these folks practice on doing the research. So you look at those two areas, and that's why people are frustrated. They want the NIH to work. They want to come up with these big answers to these big questions, not text messaging.
For many watchdog organizations, they say NIH has become an example of bad government spending. So at the end of the day, who's overseeing what projects do get funded, and should there be more transparency, more accountability in the process?
I always say yes to more transparency. That will never hurt taxpayers or really anybody. It might hurt NIH and Congress. But really, there's multiple layers of oversight here. You have the NIH. They are the first layer of oversight. The director needs to look at the budget and say, what's important? What should we be spending our money on? Then you have Congress. Congress should also be doing oversight. But with the appropriations process being broken, we haven't passed a spending bill for years, that, you know, they've been taken a little bit out of the equation. But Mike, there's not only just oversight, but what happens after that? There needs to be teeth. There needs to be follow through with that oversight to say, okay, NIH, you're wasting this money. Now, this is what you're going to do, and if you don't do it, there's going to be repercussions.
But playing devil's advocate, there's not a lot of scientists or doctors on Capitol Hill, a lot of longtime politicians, a lot of lawyers and others. Should they really be making these decisions about which projects get funded?
Well, and that's why it starts with NIH, because these projects go through a peer-reviewed process. And the problem with peer review is that you have academics sit around and they say, well, is this area of research, we're going to just say this area of research is what we're going to do, is this project worthy? They're not looking at the bigger picture of NIH, and I think that's what needs to happen. And absolutely, Congress controls the purse strings, so they should have a say in this and really force NIH to be more responsible with their money. And I'm not saying that NIH should come up there and give medical or scientific presentations, but there needs to be some sort of oversight from Congress and the administration.
David Williams, president of Taxpayers Protection Alliance. David, thank you.
Thank you.